Hey everyone, welcome to this quick tutorial on setting up the React Portfolio template. We're going to walk through everything step by step, nice and easy. If you ever need more details, you can check out the full documentation in the README file of the project. First, make sure you have npm and git installed on your machine. These are essential, so pause here if you need to set those up first. Ready? Great. Let's get started by cloning the repository. Since we're building a portfolio for a developer named Emily, we'll clone it into a folder called Emily-Portfolio. Once the repository is cloned, navigate into that folder by changing directories. Next, install all the dependencies using npm by running npm install. This might take a little while depending on your internet speed. Feel free to grab a coffee or stretch while you wait. When the installation finishes, start the development server by typing npm run dev. Now you should see the portfolio running with all the default example content. Everything working? Awesome. Now we want to start fresh, so reset everything by running the command npm run resume:clear. This command wipes out all the sample data so you can begin customizing the portfolio specifically for yourself. Once that's done, start the development server again. Now you have a clean, fresh portfolio ready for personalization. You're all set to start building your awesome portfolio from scratch. Great job getting everything set up. Let's keep going with the next steps. All right, folks, now that we've got the portfolio template up and running, it's time to make it our own. Let's dive into customizing the settings of the portfolio. All the data that controls the content and behavior of the site lives inside the public folder. Inside that folder, you'll find two key subfolders, one called Data and another called Images. The Data folder holds all the JSON files that control the portfolio's configuration and content. The Images folder is where all the visuals live. That includes icons, backgrounds, and flags. We're going to break it all down step by step. Let's start with the brain of the operation, the settings.json file located inside public, then data. Go ahead and open that up. This file controls everything from languages, themes, and preloader settings to developer flags and other customizations. Let's begin with the preloader, that little animation you see when the site loads. First up is the logo. I've got a cute pink joystick SVG ready to go. To replace the default logo, open the public folder, then go into Images, then SVG. Delete the original logo file and drop your custom one in there. You can name it the same as the original to avoid changing references, or just update the file name later in the config. Now head back to settings.json and look for the flag that says Stay on the preloader screen. Set that to true so we can test and tweak the preloader without it disappearing too fast. Scroll down to the preloader section. Let's customize the title. You can even use a little bit of HTML here if you'd like to style it. Next, update the subtitle. For Emily, we'll set it to say Game Developer. Save your changes and refresh the page. Now, if the logo looks a bit off, no worries. There's a handy property called Logo Offset. Use this to fine-tune the position of your logo. Depending on the size and shape of your image, you might need to adjust the top margin until everything lines up just right with the text. Save and refresh until it looks perfect. Next, let's add some language options for Emily's audience. She wants to support Korean, Italian, and Chinese. Still in settings.json, scroll down to the languages array. Here, define each language by giving it an ID, a flag URL, and a name, usually in the original language. Just repeat the same structure for Korean, Italian, and Chinese. The Images folder already contains a flag subfolder with a bunch of ready-to-use flag icons. Super convenient. Now head back to the Stay on the Preloader screen flag and turn it off so the preloader won't get stuck when you reload. Once you've added the new languages, save your changes and refresh the page. You should see the language selector pop up with your new options. Now that we've changed the supported languages, we also need to update the translations for the theme names. Back in settings.json, scroll to the section where the theme translations are defined. Remove any translations you're no longer using and add new ones for Korean, Italian, and Chinese. This ensures that when users hover over the theme selector, they'll see the names translated properly in their selected language. And that's a wrap for the settings setup. You've got your logo, your preloader, your languages, and your themes all customized. Next up, we'll start adding actual content, so stick around. Okay, guys, let's start customizing our page now and give it that personal touch. We're going to be working with 4 files here. One is index.html, and the other 3 are SCSS files, constants.scss, variablesThemeDark.scss, and variables-ThemeLight.scss. You'll find these SCSS files inside src/styles. Go ahead and open all 4 of them. First, let's go to index.html to set up the page title and meta keywords. By default, the page uses the same logo from the preloader as a favicon, but you can totally change that and use your own. I've already got a favicon ready, so I'm going to drop it into the SVG folder, which is inside public/images SVG. After that, I'll head over to index.html and update the favicon reference to point to my new file. Next, let's update the page title and meta keywords. I'm going to change the title tag to say Emily Park Game Developer. You can put your own name here or anything you want to show up on the browser tab. Then scroll down and update the meta description and meta keywords. This helps with SEO and lets search engines like Google index your page better. So make sure to write something descriptive and relevant to your portfolio. Now that that's done, let's start customizing the color scheme of the page. First, let's customize the preloader colors. In constants.scss, you'll find settings that control things like the preloader's background, the text color, and the Pac-Man beans color. Right now, we're going to update just the Pac-Man beans color, which is tied to the primary color. Let's change the primary color to a light pink to match the style of our new logo. Save the file and refresh the page. You'll see the Pac-Man beans are now pink. Nice. Next up, let's update the theme colors. Starting with the dark theme, open variables theme-dark.scss. Here, we're just going to change the primary color. By default, it's green, but we want it to match our pink and black aesthetic. Update the primary color variable to a nice pink. Now let's move on to the light theme. Open up variables theme-light.scss. For this one, we want to change all the shades of green to shades of pink. If you're not sure which colors to use, you can ask ChatGPT to help generate a pink color palette by saying something like, transform these green shades into pink shades, or give me a nice pink color palette. Once you've got the palette, just replace each green shade with a corresponding pink one. After updating all those values, save the file and refresh the page. You'll see your new color scheme applied across the site, and everything already starts to feel more personal. And here's something cool. You're not limited to just a light and a dark theme. If you want to add a third or even a fourth theme, you can. Just check out the instructions in the README file to learn how to do that. Oh, and just an add-on tip here. If you're not sure what to use as your logo, you can actually create alternative versions of the original logo included in the portfolio. Right here in the repo documentation, there's a link that lets you edit the original SVG. From there, you can tweak the colors and style however you like to better match your preferences, especially if you want to keep that neat little computer screen icon. Once you're happy with the look, the tool exports the updated version as an SVG automatically. Super handy, right? And hey, if you'd rather explore other logo options, there's this great site called SVG Repo. It's a solid resource for finding free and ready-to-use logos. Just type in a keyword, like programmer, for instance, and boom, tons of vector icons pop up. The best part is that all of them are SVGs, so you can fully customize the colors and styles to make them your own. It's a quick way to give your portfolio that extra touch of personality without needing a graphic design background. Now we're going to work on 2 other JSON files inside the data folder, profile.json and strings.json. Go ahead and open those files. Let's start by adding some extra assets to our image folder. Here in the image folder, I'm creating a folder named Content, where I will drop all images from the content of the portfolio. You can name it as you wish. I'm dropping the profile picture here in this folder. I'm also dropping 2 extra small versions of the logo in the SVG folder so I can style the title. It's not mandatory, it's optional, but it's a nice way to make your brand look more appealing. I'm putting those files in the SVG folder along with the main icon and the favicon. Now, in profile.json, you're going to define essential information about yourself. Start by defining your name. I'm putting here Emily Park, but you put your name. Then add the path to the profile picture we just placed in the content folder. There's also a field where you can add a link to a PDF file so people can access your resume directly. This is optional if you want to include it. Next, we have the status circle, which is that little circle next to the profile picture. This is the one we're talking about. Back to profile.json. You can set it to available, busy, or unavailable. You can also hide it by setting the visibility to false. I'm leaving it visible and set to available. Let's see how it looks so far. Great, everything is looking neat. Now let's add the translations and more customizations. You can define a localized version of your name if you use different names in different languages. You can also add an HTML brand style version of your name to show in the nav bar. For Emily, I'm adding something cool using the small logo. Let's see how it looks so far by refreshing. Wait for it to reload. Looks decent, but not there yet. A few adjustments can be made. There are two nice tweaks we can do here. First, if you notice the logo stays white even on the light theme, you can use the variable theme URL to make it dynamic so it renders the proper SVG depending on the active theme. Second, we can wrap part of the name in double curly brackets to highlight it. That part of the string will be styled with the theme's primary color. Let's refresh the page and check it out. Now we can see the logo is changing according to the theme and the highlighted portion of the name. It's starting to look a bit better, right? We're almost there. Now let's customize the status message and set it to available for hire. We can also add more entries to the roles list. If you add more than one entry, the portfolio will animate between them every 5 seconds. Let's preview it and see how it looks. You can notice that now the role is animating between the roles we created, right? Everything's looking good. Now we just need to translate everything into all the languages we support. I will just paste the translations here supporting Italian, Korean, and Chinese. So the profile will be localized for each language. Speaking of translations, let's open strings.json and translate all the strings there as well. Don't delete or change any of the keys because they're used internally by the portfolio's components. If you don't provide localizations, the app will just fall back to the default English version. So make sure they're all translated properly. And with that, we can open our portfolio and see that everything is translated and personalized. Now we're going to define the sections of the app, but first let's head to settings.json and turn debug mode on. This setting will stop all animations from running, which helps speed up the development process. For example, the preload animation will be skipped, so we can refresh the page more quickly. And don't worry, even if you forget to turn this setting off, when you build the app for production, it's automatically disabled. The same goes for all developer settings. So, in simple terms, every page of the app is called a section. These sections are grouped into categories, and on mobile view, each category appears as a tab. If we look at the live example, you'll notice we have 4 tabs, and some of them have 2 or 3 sections grouped inside. Let's start by defining our categories. Open categories.json and create the categories you want. I'm going to keep the default categories and simply translate their names into the languages I support. Nice and simple. But feel free to create or delete categories depending on your needs. Now let's define the sections in sections.json. For each section, you'll need to provide a unique ID, a category ID, which must match one from categories.json, a JSON path, which points to the JSON file that contains the section's content, a font awesome icon. Each section should have its own JSON file inside data sections. So let's go ahead and create those files now. You can use the demo sections that come with the app as templates. Just duplicate them and tweak them to your liking. I've already prepared my section files, so I'm just dragging and dropping them into my project. Now let's refresh the page, wait for it to load. And that's it. All the sections are showing up. Although they don't have custom titles or content yet, we'll handle that in the next tutorials. Let's also check out how it looks on mobile. You should see the sections grouped into their respective categories as tabs, just as expected. If any section isn't showing up properly, make sure you've linked it to a valid category. Otherwise, you might run into errors. There it is. Let's customize the section titles now. This part is actually super simple. First, open one of the section JSON files you created in the last step. I'll use the JSON for the cover section as an example. A section JSON file should contain two main objects, title and articles. We're going to start by filling in the title.locales field. This field holds the translations for each language you want to support, and each language entry should include 4 properties. 1. Title short. This is the short title used on mobile screens. Keep it brief, around 10 to 12 characters. For example, welcome. 2. Title short nav. This is the label that shows up in the nav bar. Also keep it short. For example, about me. 3. Title long prefix. This appears above the main title on desktop screens. Keep it simple like hello. 4. Title long. This is the main desktop title. You can highlight part of the text using double curly brackets. For example, I'm Emily Park. The highlighted part, Emily Park, will be styled with your theme's primary color. Once you've filled out these 4 fields for each language, save the file and refresh the page, wait for it to load, and voila! Your section's title and navbar label should now display correctly, just like we expected. Now all you need to do is translate these title entries into all the languages you support. Then go through each section JSON file and repeat the same process, making sure to define title.locales properly for every section. That's it. Your app will now display personalized, localized titles across both desktop and mobile views. Okay, so now let's start working on the actual content of the sections. And we'll do that using articles, which are reusable components used to display different kinds of content blocks. Here's how it works. Each section JSON file has an articles array. Each object inside that array represents a block of content, like a skills list, a timeline, a set of testimonials, a contact form, and so on. Let's take a simple example. We'll add 2 articles to our section, one for skills and another for testimonials. I'm just copying and pasting this structure from the documentation example. For now, we'll just add a few empty items to each article so we can visualize the layout and structure. In the future, we will populate these items with content, so don't worry. Once you refresh the page, you'll see 2 content blocks showing up in your section, one for skills and one for testimonials. They're just displaying placeholders for now, but the layout is already in place. Simple as that. If you check the documentation, you'll see a full list of available article types. There are components for rendering timelines, lists, cards, contact forms, and much more. And don't worry, we're going to go through all of them in the next tutorials, step by step. Okay, so let's start building our portfolio cover page. I've deleted those placeholder articles from the last step so we can start this section from scratch. The first article we're going to add is the ArticleInlineList, which renders a list of information that can optionally be clickable. We'll use this to display key info about Emily. Go to the docs and copy the basic working example. Paste it into your articles array and delete the example items. We're starting from a blank slate here. Next, go back to the documentation and find the empty item model. Let's grab that and create 3 items. One item will display her city, another her email, and the last one her LinkedIn. Let's start with the first item. Her city is Seattle, Washington. This item won't be clickable. As for the icon, we're going to use Font Awesome's address book. If you're not familiar with Font Awesome, it's super easy. Just look it up quickly and you'll get the hang of how to use icons with code. Now that you've seen how the first one works, I'll go ahead and paste in the other 2 items, email and LinkedIn. You'll notice that both of these items have links, right? Inside each link object, there's a URL and a tooltip string. This tooltip string is optional and represents the text shown when you hover the link. Just make sure this string is defined in your settings.json file. It has to be a global string that exists there. Otherwise, the tooltip won't show properly. Okay, now refresh the page. wait for it to load, and boom, our inline list is showing up right below the title. The clickable items work perfectly, and everything looks clean and tidy. One last thing to pay attention to: settings. Depending on how long the strings you use are, you might want to tweak the display as list if width lower than value. This setting defines the screen width where the list switches to a vertical layout. For example, if it's set to 380, then on screens narrower than 380 pixels, the items will stack vertically. If your labels are longer, you may need to adjust this threshold to prevent layout issues. And that's it for this article. Now let's create an intro text for Emily's cover page. For this, we're going to use the ArticleText component. First, we're going to add an image to the content folder. This image will be displayed next to the text. I'm using an illustration of a girl in a chibi style, which fits nicely with the aesthetic of the portfolio. Next, let's head to the documentation and copy the basic working example for article text. Once you paste it into your section's articles array, go ahead and delete the example item. After that, go back to the docs and copy the empty item model. In this article, each item represents a block of text. Since we only want to display a single block for now, we'll be using just one item. You can choose to display either an image or a font awesome icon next to the title. In our case, we're using an image, so you don't need to provide font awesome icon values or icon color settings. Feel free to either leave them blank or remove those fields entirely. Now for the text content, we can get creative. You're allowed to use HTML styling as well as some custom formatting rules. For example, use double curly brackets to apply the primary color to any part of the text. Use square brackets to bold a word, or use standard HTML tags like strong if you prefer. Just remember, don't skip translations. Make sure to provide localized versions of the text for all the languages your app supports. I've gone ahead and pasted all translations into the item as well. So yep, that's it for this article. Now when you refresh the page, you'll see the intro text displayed just as expected right next to the image. The translations should work perfectly too. A very simple and effective component to introduce your portfolio. Oh, and just a quick tip here. When you're adding images to the article text component, it's best to use images that are 800 by 6666 pixels. If you drop in a square image or something with a different aspect ratio, it might get stretched to fill the space, which can make things look a bit off. Even if you're using a squarey image like this chibi avatar I've got here, you can make it look clean by placing it inside a transparent 800 by 666 container before exporting. I'm using Canva in this case, but feel free to use any image editor you like. The main idea is just to keep the aspect ratio consistent so everything lines up nicely in the layout. Now, we're going to use a component called ArticleCards to render a list of certificates that Emily has earned. This component allows you to display each card with either an image icon or a font awesome icon, and we're going to explore how both options work. I've already set up the structure using the basic working example with 2 empty items ready to go. Just a quick reminder, make sure to properly adjust the IDs of your items so they don't repeat. For instance, since this is the 3rd article on the page, we're using ID 3. It's a good practice to keep all IDs unique to avoid conflicts or bugs. I've already set the article titles as well, in this case, my certifications, and as you'll see, they're already translated into all supported languages. In this component, we're going to sort the items by date in descending order, so the most recent certificate appears first. This sort setting is available in every article type, by the way. Now let's add our 2 items. The first one will use an image as the icon. The second one will use a font awesome icon. Keep in mind, if both image and icon are provided, the image takes priority and the icon will be ignored. For the font awesome icon, we're also assigning custom colors. For this includes setting the light mode colors, which apply when the site is in light theme. We're also going to define the dates for both items. Let's say the first one is from September 2023 and the second one is from March 2025. Once that's set, I'll just paste in the translations. Each item must have both a title and a text for each supported language. Now we can refresh the page, wait for everything to load, and there it is. We have our two certificate cards displayed, one with a custom image and one with a font awesome icon. To make things a bit more complete, I'll add two more items. When there are several cards and the available screen width is limited, the component automatically turns into a slider. And as you can see now, we have 4 certificates and a neat sliding pagination bar. Just like that, Emily's certificates are beautifully displayed. All right, folks, let's keep going with our React portfolio setup. In this step, we're going to customize the homepage by adding a list of languages Emily speaks. And for that, we're using a component called ArticleSkills. Now, before we drop in the real content, let's have some fun exploring what this component can actually do. So, what I did first was add 6 empty items to the article and only gave each one a font awesome icon. No text, no percentages, nothing fancy yet. Just like the other card components in this project, you can go with either an image or an icon. Totally flexible. Right now, what we have is just a clean list of icons chilling on the page. But let's spice it up. The first setting we're going to tweak is called Max Items Per Row. This one controls how many items can show up side by side. So let's change that value to Suspor 1. Save your file and refresh the page. And boom, now we've got just one item per row. Clean, focused, very readable. There's another setting here that's super handy, Max Rows Collapse Threshold. What this does is tell the component how many rows it should show before hiding the rest behind a See More button. Let's set this to 4. That means if we have more than 4 rows, it's going to collapse them and give us that toggle. Refresh the page, and yep, you can see it. The See More button has appeared. Looks super neat. Now let's play with the icon styling. There's this option called Round Icons, and by default, it's set to True, which means your icons show up inside a little circle. But if you turn that off, the icons will stretch and fill the entire space with no borders. Let's disable it real quick and refresh. There you go. Now we've got big, bold, square icons. Depending on your vibe, this might be exactly the look you want. All right, let's look at the individual item fields now. Each item has a bunch of optional stuff you can use. First, we've got the date field. If you add a date to the item, the component will calculate how long you've been learning or practicing that thing. So for the first item, I'm going to add a date. Let's say January 2020. Save it and refresh, and now you'll see a cute little text saying how many years it's been. Super handy. For the second item, I'm going to add a percentage value. This shows how proficient Emily is in this skill, and it appears as a progress bar under the icon. Let's set it to something like 75. Save and refresh. Boom, there's the progress bar. Smooth and clean. Now on the third item, I'll show you how to add a level and a short description. This goes inside the locales object, and you can add whatever label you want, like beginner, advanced, or something custom. You can also add a sentence to describe what the skill is or how well Emily speaks that language. Save it and refresh, and you'll see it renders right under the icon. Super customizable. And that's pretty much how you can experiment with the ArticleSkills component. You've got layout control, progress bars, dynamic dates, and styling options all in one tidy package. All right, now that we've explored the features, let's clear everything out and add Emily's actual language list. I'm going to delete those placeholder items and replace them with real content. Each language will have a round icon, 1 item per line, and we'll add a level and description for each one. No need to type it all out here. I'll just paste the items into the file and save. Done. Now let's take a look. Refresh the page, and there it is. Beautifully laid out, fully localized, and clean as ever. And hey, you're not limited to languages. You can use this exact same component for frameworks, tools, hobbies, whatever you want to show off. You can keep it simple or go all in with dates and progress bars, just like in the skills section of the original portfolio. Get creative and have fun with it. That's it for the ArticleSkills component. Let's keep moving. All right, now let's dive into the article timeline component. In this part of the portfolio, we're going to build an education background section. But before jumping into the real content, we'll take a few moments to explore how this component works and what it's capable of. To get started, I copied and pasted the basic working example of the article timeline from the documentation into the page. By default, this gives us a single empty item. So right now, the section looks pretty empty and uneventful, which is totally fine for experimenting. The first thing we're going to do is define an icon for the item. Just like many other components in this project, the timeline items support either an image or a font awesome icon, completely up to you. For our test, I'm going to use the Apple logo from Font Awesome's brand set, which is referenced as Fa Brands Fa Apple. It's a recognizable symbol and makes for a fun placeholder. I'll also set the icon color to black for both the light and dark themes to make sure it stays clean and visible regardless of the UI mode. Next up, dates. The timeline works best when you provide a clear start and end date for each item, as it uses this data to visually anchor events in time. For this example, I'll set the start date to January 2020 and the end date to January 2024. After saving and refreshing the page, we can see that the dates are now nicely displayed on the item. Everything looks great. Now, what if the timeline entry is still ongoing? That's easy to handle. All we have to do is add the now field to the date object and set it to true. This automatically updates the end date display to say present instead of showing a specific month and year. And yes, if you want to localize or customize the present string, you can totally do that in the strings.json file. With the date and icon in place, it's time to add more details to the timeline item. Let's give it a title. This will be the name of the experience, education, or event. Then we can also set a province, country, and institution. For example, let's pretend this item represents a degree completed in the US at Apple Inc. We'll set the province to US and the institution to Apple Inc., though these are just mock values for now. Don't forget to also add a short descriptive text to explain what the experience was all about. These fields are all optional except for the title, so you can include as much or as little as you like. Once we refresh the page, we now have a fully filled out timeline entry with a title, location, organization, dates, and a short description. It already looks pretty polished. Now let's explore two additional fields that add a bit of extra structure and visual clarity to each timeline item: list and tags. The list field is perfect for bullet points, maybe a few highlights or achievements from that experience. For example, item 1, item 2, item 3. Select anything relevant that you want to showcase. Meanwhile, the tags field is great for adding quick labels like bachelor's degree, boot camp, or online course. These tags give readers a fast visual cue about what the item is about. Let's add a few example entries for both fields, save, and refresh. And there it is. Our timeline entry now looks fully fleshed out, complete with tags, a bulleted list, all the main fields, and a styled icon. Everything is rendered beautifully and clearly. Now that we understand how everything works, I'll go ahead and paste in the full list of Emily's education items. This includes a mix of items that use either an image or a font awesome icon, and, of course, each item is fully localized with translations for every supported language. One last touch, I set the timeline items to be ordered by date in descending order so that the most recent educational achievements show up first. This helps the viewer get a quick overview of the most relevant and current experiences at a glance. With everything saved, let's refresh the page again, and there it is. A clean, professional-looking timeline that effectively showcases Emily's education background, complete with dates, visuals, and structured details. We can now easily replicate this section for the professional experience timeline and add Emily's work history in the same format. The component handles everything consistently, so building the next section will be just as smooth, simple, clear, and powerful. That's the article timeline component. The next component we're going to explore is a pretty straightforward one, but still super useful: the ArticleStack component. We're going to use it to build out Emily's skill stack, showcasing the various technologies she's proficient in. At its core, ArticleStack displays a clean grid of technology logos side by side, super visual and easy to digest. Setting it up is simple and flexible. Each item in the stack supports either a font awesome icon, icon, or a custom image. That way, you're not locked into a single source for your visuals. For example, we used a static image for technologies like C#, since Font Awesome doesn't provide an icon for it. For technologies like Swift, on the other hand, we used a Font Awesome icon and applied a custom fill color to match the branding and make it pop on the screen. But here's something you'll want to keep in mind. Depending on the color you choose, it might not look great across all themes. A good case is JavaScript. The classic yellow icon looks sharp in dark mode, but it's hard to see on a light background. So for that, we defined two separate fill colors, a brighter one for dark mode and a slightly darker one for light mode. This makes sure the icons remain readable and balanced no matter which theme the user is on. When you switch themes, you can instantly see the effect. Sometimes these little adjustments go a long way in polishing your UI. Now here's something else you can do with this component. Each stack item supports an optional date field. If you provide a date, e.g. January 2024, the component will automatically calculate and display how long the person has been using that technology. Let's try that with a test item. Save and refresh, and there it is. The calculated experience time shows right below the icon. Clean, subtle, and informative. That said, for Emily's portfolio, I decided to keep it a bit more minimal, just showing the logo and the technology name without the date. I felt it made the layout cleaner and more focused. But that's the great thing about this component. It gives you the flexibility to go detailed or minimal, depending on the look you're going for. Now let's explore the ArticlePortfolio component, used to showcase projects. It's going to display Emily's personal work inside the Portfolio tab. To get started, I grabbed the basic working example from the documentation and added two empty items. For the first one, I used an image as the avatar, and for the second one, I used a Font Awesome icon. I named them Item 1 and Item 2, added a few placeholder descriptions, and included some tags. This is how it looks at the moment. We have the titles, the icons, tags, and descriptions already in place. The structure is clean and familiar, pretty similar to what we've seen on the previous components. Now let's explore the preview field, which is a unique feature of this component. In this field, we can add interactive links to each portfolio item. For example, let's add a Google link to one of the items and label it Play Now with a gamepad icon. Each preview entry includes three parts: the URL, the label, and the icon. Once we've filled in those parameters and saved the file, refreshing the page will reveal the button, nicely rendered and fully functional. It acts like a CTA, and you can have multiple links if needed, each with its own icon and label. Another part of the preview field is the ability to add screenshots. These screenshots can have different proportions depending on the visual style you want: 16:9 for landscape, 9:16 for portrait, or 1:1 for square formats. For the first item, I created a gallery using portrait screenshots, and for the second item, I added a landscape set. After refreshing the page, gallery buttons appear on each item. Clicking on them opens up the screenshot viewer, fully functional with a slider, letting users preview the visual content of each project. There's also an option to embed a YouTube video. Let's try that now by pasting a YouTube link in the video field of the first item. After saving and refreshing, a YouTube button shows up, and clicking on it opens the embedded video directly within the page. There's no need to leave the site, it plays right there in the portfolio. Super handy for project demos or trailers. Now that we've covered all the basic features, I went ahead and filled the section with real content. I added 9 items total, each one showcasing a different project. Some use images, others use icons, some have preview buttons or YouTube videos, and others have screenshot galleries. It's a varied, visually engaging display. Going back to the page and refreshing it now shows a complete portfolio for Emily, with each item styled consistently and showing off all the features we've explored. Later in tutorial number 20, we'll also explore filtering, a built-in feature that lets users filter items by category using tags. That makes the component even more interactive. But for now, we have a clean, fully functional portfolio section up and running, and it's doing a great job showcasing Emily's projects. Let's take a look at the next component, ArticleTestimonials. I'm going to create a page called Freelancing on Emily's portfolio where she'll showcase her freelance work. I've set up this page and added an introductory text using the ArticleText component we saw earlier. Now, I want to include a testimonial section below where people share how much they love working with her. To begin, I grabbed the basic working example from the documentation. I pasted it into the section and adjusted the ID so it aligns with our setup. Let's analyze the structure a bit. We have a label, which is the name of the person giving the testimonial, and an optional link if we want that name to be clickable. We can set either an image or an icon for the avatar. Then we've got the title and the text, both of which are localizable. These fields represent the person's role or connection to Emily and the quote they're giving. After setting this up, I refresh the page to see how the default example looks. Everything's showing up correctly. Perfect. Now let's replace the placeholders with real testimonials. I've created cute, stylized logos for the people giving the quotes to match the overall theme of the site. If you've got Canva, by the way, it's really easy to make logos like this. There are tons of free mock-up templates for people that you can customize however you want. Once those avatars were ready, I pasted the actual testimonials into the section, complete with their respective translations. I saved the file, refreshed the page, and voila! The testimonial slider is now displaying below the intro text, showing real quotes from people, beautifully styled and perfectly integrated into the freelancing page. It all came together super nicely. Now let's finish the freelancing page with one last component, an article info list. This component is very basic, but it can be super informative and user-friendly. I've added here a list of services that Emily provides, placed right below the testimonials. This diagram-style list was built using the ArticleInfoList template. Let's quickly analyze the structure. It's very straightforward. Each item requires a font awesome icon. This component specifically doesn't support images since it's meant to be a simpler and more uniform layout compared to the others. You'll notice the fields label and link are set to null in this list. That's because we're not linking anywhere. It's purely static content. The actual text is placed inside the locales object, where we provide a title and a description for each item. And that's it. Just that simple, clear, and effective. Now let's scroll down to the contact section. I've created another article info list here, but this time using links. You can see that each item is fully interactive. Clickable elements like email, GitHub, LinkedIn, and more. Let's take a quick look at the implementation. Instead of placing the content inside locales, each item here has a label and a link object. The label defines the visible text of the link, and the link object contains both the URL and a tooltip string, just like we've seen in other components. For example, take the email item. The label is the email address itself, and the link uses a mail to URL. So when a user clicks on it, it opens their default email client to send Emily a message. So in short, we can use ArticleInfoList in two different ways, either as a static diagram-style list for showcasing information, or as a list of clickable links for user interaction. Simple, flexible, and super useful. Let's start working on the updates page, where we're going to display info about Emily's life updates. We're going to introduce here another super simple and useful component, ArticleFacts. This component is basically used for showcasing numbers or stats, things like the amount of stars, number of projects developed, or fun facts related to someone's journey. For example, here on Emily's portfolio, I added a few playful and meaningful items, the number of game jams she's participated in, how many hearts she's received on Fiverr, and other more fun-oriented stats like coffees consumed or lines of code written. Let's take a quick look at the implementation. Each item accepts either an IMG or an FACON. In our case, we're using FACONs for all items. but you could definitely use your own custom images if you want a more personalized look. When you don't define a specific color for the icon color will automatically adapt to the theme. It uses the main text color for contrast. So for instance, it shows up white in dark mode and black in light mode, which keeps it always visible and elegant. As for the content, each fact item has a title, like the number or stat itself, and a text, a short label shown below it. The title can be defined only in the main language. There's no need to repeat it in every language file. That's because the app is built to fall back to the main language if it can't find a translation. So I've only translated the text that appears below the number, which makes localization much easier and faster. Very simple component, right? But it fits perfectly on a page like this, ideal for giving the user a quick overview of highlights, milestones, or just fun facts about Emily's personal and professional life. If you want to have something like a mini blog or a list of chronological events, but simpler than a timeline, then you can add an ArticleThreads object. It's basically a timeline without an avatar and with the option of having a preview, just like the portfolio items. For example, on Emily's portfolio, I added a thread to show her recent updates, relevant facts about her life. You can see that instead of showing a date interval, each entry only has a single date. There's also no avatar, just a clean and basic thread layout. Some items also have links, just like portfolio entries, so you can attach media to your post, screenshots, YouTube videos, external links, anything you want to share along with your post. Let's take a quick look at the implementation. We have the article here with ID2, since it's the second article in the list. Each item includes a single date in the format YYYYIMM. Then there's the preview object, which works just like in the portfolio section. It can contain a list of links with label, icon, and tooltip, screenshots in the standard 16:9, 9:16, or 1:1 proportions, and YouTube videos. Then the locales portion follows the same logic as the timeline. Each entry can include a title, province, country, institution, and a text body. All of these are optional. Like in our first item here, we didn't provide an institution, but the title should be filled in for every language to ensure consistency across translations. There's also a helpful setting called Max Rows Collapse Threshold. This tells the layout how many entries to show before it collapses the list. If the number of posts exceeds this threshold, a Show More button will appear, so users can view the rest of the posts. And that's it, a super simple and very useful component for rendering life events or casual updates. Now we're going to add a contact form to our contact section. This template uses email.js, which is a free service that lets you send emails straight from JavaScript, no backend needed at all. It's super handy for simple projects like this portfolio, where the amount of traffic is pretty light and you don't need anything too fancy running in the background. All right, so the first thing you'll need to do is sign up for a free email.js account. Once you've done that, confirm your email address and log in to the user dashboard. The first thing we're going to set up is a new email service. This is how you connect email.js to your actual email provider, the one that will be used to send the messages. In my case, I connected it to my Gmail account, so email.js can use Gmail to send messages to me. Just click on Add New Service and pick the provider you prefer. Go through the steps to link it, and you're good to go. Next, we need to create an email template. That's the format email.js will use to send the messages. Head over to the email templates section and choose the Contact Us template. There are a couple of things you'll want to tweak here to make it your own. First, change the title to something like, "You received a new message from the portfolio," so it's immediately clear what kind of message it is. Then, make sure the to email field is set to your own address. That way, the messages actually get delivered to your inbox. Also, this part's important. Make sure the subject that the user sends is printed somewhere inside the message body. You'll want to use the variable named custom subject. I personally placed it right before the message content, but you can put it wherever it makes sense for you. Just make sure it shows up, because otherwise you won't know what the message was about. Once you've set everything up, click on Apply Changes. And seriously, don't forget to hit Save after that. It's so easy to forget, and if you do, nothing gets saved. Speaking from experience, once that's done, your template is ready, and we're all set on the email.js side. Now let's head back to the portfolio and create the actual article contact form component. Grab the basic working example from the documentation. It's already good to go, and paste it into the contact section of your site, right before the list of contact options you already have there. Make sure that all the IDs are lined up correctly, because if they aren't, the form might not render or behave the way you want. Next up, we're going to localize the success messages. This is so the user gets confirmation in their language once they submit the form. We'll just copy and paste the localizations in for now to save time, but all you really need to do is translate the message fields into the languages your site supports. Just a quick reminder, don't change the keys in the JSON, only update the content. Otherwise, the form won't be able to find the messages correctly when it tries to display them. Now let's plug in the credentials we got from email.js. Go back to your email.js dashboard and head over to the account section. Copy your public key and paste it into your JSON file where it says public key. Then go to Email Services, find the service you just created, and copy its service ID. Paste that into your JSON file in the service ID field. Lastly, go to Email Templates. Grab the template ID for the template you customized earlier, and paste it into the template ID field in your JSON file. Double-check all three values, public key, service ID, and template ID, and make sure they're in the right places. If you accidentally paste one into the wrong field, like putting the template ID into the service ID field, the form's just not going to work. So be careful with that. And that's it. Your contact form is now fully set up and ready to start sending messages. Unlike most other article objects in the portfolio, this one doesn't include any individual items. Everything it needs is handled through the settings, which keeps things nice and tidy. Let's test it out to make sure everything works. I'll fill in the form with a name, let's say Bill Gates. Then I'll use bill@msn.com as the email, set the subject to "Hey there," and type a quick message like, "What's up, bro? Are you all right?" Just a test message so we can see everything in action. Hit submit, wait a few seconds while it sends, and boom, the message is dispatched via email.js. Now just give it a little bit of time, a few seconds really, and you should see the message show up in your inbox exactly the way you configured it in your template. Super smooth, super efficient, and best of all, no backend needed. Now we're going to explore another really nice built-in feature of articles, categorization. Let's jump back into the portfolio and add a category filter to one of our article sections, in this case, the one showcasing our games. The idea is to let users filter the items by platform, console games, mobile games, and web games. This type of filtering works with any article that contains multiple items, so it's super flexible. First thing we'll do is add a new setting to the article called Categorize By. This is where we define the list of categories we want to use. It's recommended to follow the naming pattern category followed by the name, for example, category mobile, category web, and category console. Let's go ahead and define these three. After saving and refreshing the portfolio, you'll see that a filter bar has appeared above the items. Super quick setup, and now we can filter the items by platform. Next up, let's localize the category names so they show up correctly in every supported language. I'll just paste the translations in here. But there's one detail you need to pay attention to. There's a built-in category called Category or All, which is used to show all items at once. You don't need to manually add this one to the settings, it's already there by default. But you do need to define a translation for it, just like the others. All other categories, like mobile, web, and console, should be translated as usual into every supported language. Nice and easy. Now we just need to assign categories to each item, and this part's really simple. Inside each item object, just add a new field called Category ID and set it to one of the categories you defined earlier. For example, for the first item, We're assigning it to category mobile. Once categorization is enabled, it's a good idea to make sure all items have a category assigned, just to keep things consistent and avoid any weird behavior. So let's go ahead and assign the rest. I'll just paste them in here. And that's it. Let's head back to the portfolio and check it out. Now we can filter the items by platform, just like we planned, mobile, web, or console, and it's all working smoothly. Oh, and while I was at it, I also added categorization to the tech stack section. I broke the technologies down into 3 categories: languages, frameworks, and engines, just to show how categorization works in a different context. Now that we've finished building our portfolio, it's time to take it live. And a great and free place to host it is GitHub Pages. So let's deploy it. All right, let's get started. I've already created an empty repository where I'm going to push Emily's portfolio. It's called Emily React Portfolio. The first thing we need to do is set up GitHub Actions. Head over to the repo settings, then go to Actions General. There, make sure Allow All Actions and Reusable Workflows is enabled. Then scroll down to Workflow Permissions and select Read and Write Permissions. This gives GitHub Actions the power to create packages and push changes to the repo. We're basically giving it the keys to the kingdom so it can do the work for us. Once that's done, just hit Save and we're good to go. Next, let's adjust a few project settings. In your settings.json, make sure all developer options are disabled. They're usually off by default in production, but it's always good to be explicit, so I'm going to disable debug mode here. Another important step, we need to set the base path for our app. Open vite.config.js in the root of the project and set the base property to match your repo name. I'll just copy and paste mine to make sure it matches exactly. If you skip this step, your portfolio might break when it's live because the paths won't resolve correctly. It's a tiny change, but super important. Once we're done with all the configurations, it's time to make our first commit and let GitHub handle the deployment. This template already comes with a workflow that automatically builds the portfolio and creates the GH Pages branch used by GitHub Pages. You'll find this workflow inside the .github folder. All we have to do is push our changes, and GitHub takes care of the rest. Gotta love continuous deployment. Let's go ahead and make that first commit. You can use the command line or GitHub Desktop, a tool I personally love because it's super practical and easy to use. Once we push the commit, just hang tight. It might take a little while, especially if there are a bunch of images or new files. Totally normal for the first push. After that, your files will be up on GitHub and the deployment script should start running automatically. If you hit any snags, don't worry. There's a really helpful troubleshooting guide in the official docs. It covers the most common issues and misconfigurations you might run into during deployment. Definitely worth checking out if something goes wrong. Now let's monitor the deployment. If it hasn't started on its own, you can trigger it manually by going to the Actions tab, selecting the workflow and clicking Run Workflow or Rerun. In our case, everything seems to be working just fine. Once that's done, there's just one last step. Go to Settings Pages, and under Source, select the GH-Pages branch. That's the branch our deployment script generated. It contains all the production-ready files. You only need to do this once, and after that, updates will be smooth as butter. Give it a couple of minutes to finish setting up, and that's it. Your site is officially live on GitHub Pages. After you set the target branch correctly, give it a few seconds and head over to the Deployments tab of your repository. You should see a new item called GitHub Pages pop up there. If it doesn't show up right away, just refresh the page after a few seconds. It should be there, ready to go. Once it appears, you can click on it and access your live portfolio. And the best part? From now on, every time you push new changes to the main branch, your site will be automatically deployed and updated. No extra steps needed. Just push, and voila, it's live. Now let's take a look at the final result. Here we've got the cover page and the education page. There are a couple of pages we didn't really explore during the tutorial. The experience page, which works similarly to the education page. It's a clean timeline layout, And then there's a custom page I created to showcase a gaming studio Emily's working with. For that one, I use the ArticleText and ArticleSkills components with progress bars. Looks neat, right? And that's it. The site is live, polished, and ready for the world to see. Time to share it with your friends, your colleagues, show off your awesome portfolio to everyone. If the default articles included in the portfolio don't quite meet your needs, no worries. This template is pretty flexible and easy to extend. You can create your own custom components to display any type of content you like. In this tutorial, we'll walk through creating a new article type called Article Accordion. This component will display a list of items in an accordion layout, allowing users to expand and collapse each section to reveal its content. First thing we're going to do is create an instance of this article. Let's do it here on the contact page. We're creating a new article, setting the component to Article Accordion, and adding two items to it, one named Item 1 and another named Item 2. Simple like that. Now let's refresh the page and see it. And boom, article not found. Of course, because this article doesn't exist, so the portfolio doesn't know how to render it, but we're going to implement it right now. Okay, so open a command line at the root of your portfolio and type the following command: npm run resume make article accordion. After we do that, you'll see that two new files have been created inside the sr/component/articles folder, a .jsx file and a .scss file. Let's implement the article now. Open the ArticleAccordion.jsx file and you'll see it has three components: Article Accordion, the main component that wraps the entire article, Article Accordion items, a container for the article's items, and Article Accordion item, which represents each individual item. We need to implement these three wrappers so our new article will display properly. First of all, let's import Bootstrap's accordion component. We're going to use it to implement the accordion wrappers, since Bootstrap already has a built-in accordion. It speeds up a lot of things. For the first component, Article Accordion, we're not doing anything special. It's just the general wrapper that extends the article structure. Usually, we don't need to customize anything here unless your article requires some top-level configuration, like modifying the category based on the content or something similar. In the second component, Article Accordion items, will create the Bootstrap accordion and wrap the items inside it. We'll also grab the first item from the filtered items array and use its ID to set the initially expanded accordion item. We need to know which item starts expanded, and we'll make it the first item in the list. If there are no items, just return null. If you're working with more complex articles that include custom settings or preferences, you can access those fields through the data wrapper component. This component is an instance of Article Data Wrapper, a model that parses and manages the article's data. If you want to add custom settings fields, you should handle them inside the parse settings method of this class. Finally, we'll implement the Article Accordion item component. This one will render each item in the accordion displaying its title and content. So we'll use the accordion item component from Bootstrap to wrap it, set the event key using the item's unique ID, and render the locales for the title and the text using the accordion's header and body. And that's it. It's meant to be a simple component for demonstration purposes. Oh, and if you want to add custom styles to your component, you can also open the articleaccordion.scss file and write your own CSS there. Now let's go back to the page and see the article working live. And there it is. We now have our own custom article to display stuff in an accordion layout. Just a simple example, but it can be very handy depending on your layout. Now, go ahead and implement your own custom article to display content the way you want.